I think I've shared with you all before that there are certain themes that kind of come up every week with my patients and my clients. I'm not sure if it's my own headspace and kind of where I'm at in my own life, or maybe it's the universe trying to bring me a message or a lesson through my patients. But regardless, I seem to find a theme of the week. And this week, the theme was all around perseverance. The perseverance, patience, persistence that's needed in order to achieve our goals, whatever that goal may be. Now, in this case, it happened to be with a patient who is engaged in a really long weight loss journey in order to achieve long-term health and well-being. But what I love about these stories is that while they revolve around weight loss or health because they happen to take place in my medical practice and in my office, the wisdom can be extrapolated to our greater lives. There is wisdom here. There are nuggets that we can extract from my experiences, my patient experiences, and my clients in the office, and we can use them, and I use them in other aspects of my life: personal, professional, relational aspects of my life. So, as you listen to this episode, I want you to think about something that you are grappling with, maybe a goal or a wish that you need to cultivate a little bit more perseverance, persistence, patience, grit, and see how these lessons may help you in that endeavor.
Welcome back to Health Bite, the podcast where I offer small, actionable bites towards greater physical, mental, and emotional health and well-being. I'm your host, Dr. Adrienne Youdim. I'm a triple board certified internist, obesity medicine, and physician nutrition specialist, and I have learned in working with patients and clients for nearly 20 years that good nutrition is not just about the food that you eat, but all the ways in which we can nourish ourselves physically, mentally, and emotionally. Together, we will explore the intersection of science, nutrition, health, and well-being in the pursuit of living well. These quick bites will leave you feeling motivated, empowered, and inspired.
So I saw a patient in the office this week that I've worked with for many, many years. The first time we met was before the pandemic, and she had a long history of excess weight and needed or wanted to lose at least 100 pounds in order to reach this healthy weight range for her height and for her body. After working together for about 6 months, she had lost 40 pounds and then she kind of disappeared. And that's what happens sometimes. Sometimes I never know what happened or why, but in this case, she returned a few years later. This round, we continued to work with each other for over a year. And on this week's visit, she had reached the 100-pound mark. She had lost 100 pounds. And it was so exciting because she had imagined this and envisioned this for years. She had managed and navigated a setback, and now she was here to celebrate achieving this goal. And so I asked her, because I'm always curious, what clicks for people? Like, what happened this time on this round that hadn't happened in all of her past or prior attempts? What made it her click? So I asked her, what was different this time around? She paused and she thought for a moment and she said, one foot in front of the other. I just kept going, one step at a time, one day at a time, one foot in front of another. And I'll admit, this is not a super sexy answer, right? Like you pause and you're waiting for that magic, that fire, that dun da da, right? But the reality is that this is the magic. It's one foot in front of the other. Now, I'll tell you, a lot of patients are coming in these days thinking that these new drugs are the magic. And I want to tell you, they're great drugs. Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, Manjaro. I prescribe them and they really do a lot in terms of helping people reach at least their weight loss goals. But I want to tell you, while they're great, they are not magic. People still need to do the work. They still need to do the hard work of cultivating perseverance, patience, one foot in front of the other, meaning they need to be in it for the long haul, step by step. And her comment made me think of a podcast interview I did with a weight loss coach several years ago. We'll link it in the show notes. But basically, this is a very successful coach, successful both in her personal endeavors and in her weight loss attempts, because she herself has lost over 100 pounds and kept it off for over 10 years. And I remember a mantra that she shared with me that was the secret to her success, which was, what is thing, one thing that I can do better today that I didn't do yesterday? Just one thing. And this coach shared with me that this mantra was the secret sauce to her success. What was one thing she could do, one wholesome meal that she could cook today that was better than yesterday? Getting off the couch and going for a walk was one thing she could do today. Waking up early and heading to the gym was one thing. Passing by the pantry without mindlessly snacking, just one thing, one decision that is better today than yesterday. And doing that one thing again and again and again, one day after another, one foot in front of the other, one step at a time. And I want you to ask yourself, what a practical, actionable, and self-compassionate way, not to mention effective way, to approach ourselves. Did I mention effective? Because this woman had lost over 100 pounds and kept it off for over a decade. And so this is the point I want to make today, that any successful effort requires this kind of resilience, this kind of perseverance, this kind of patience with ourselves, and it requires grit. Massive change is never how it appears on the outside, right? You see your friend that you haven't seen in over a year and she looks great. She tells you she's lost 30 pounds. It may appear like all of a sudden to you because you haven't seen her for the past year, but you don't know what she did for 365 days in order to get to this point in which you are seeing her in this moment of time, right? You see somebody's company flourishing and you think, wow, how did that happen? Chances are it didn't just happen. Like a friend of mine who now is super successful with a tremendous roster of celebrity clients. He worked for 10 years towards this dream. 10 years without making a single penny, putting every little thing he earned back into the business. 10 years of painstaking grit. 10 years, by the way, during which time he was married and had kids and could not contribute to the financial stability of his own household while his wife was supporting him and the children. Most people right now don't see that painstaking work he did one day at a time, one step at a time. All they see is that right now he's hanging with the celebs. And then almost as if to highlight this point that I'm telling you, right after I saw that patient, I stumbled upon a TED Talk that I've seen in the past by Angela Duckworth. Maybe you know her. She is a psychologist and the author of a very famous book called Grit. And in her TED Talk, she shares her research, that showed that the number one predictor of success was not social intelligence, not good looks, not health, but grit. And Angela goes on to say in this TED Talk, grit is passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. Grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking with your future day in, day out, not just for weeks, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to make that future a reality. Grit is living life like it's a marathon, not a sprint.
The U.S. Surgeon General just released a staggering report. 41% of parents report feeling that stress is completely overwhelming, and 48% report feeling so stressed that they can't function. Last year, the American Psychological Association released data showing that much of Americans, from parents to professionals, are feeling the same. But just because the experience is common does not mean that there isn't a solution. Mind-body skills are evidence-based practices rooted in ancient wisdom and backed by modern science that have been scientifically proven to reduce stress and manage reactivity. I have created a 6-week live program that teaches you how to shift from reactivity to resilience. I call it Resilient Minds. These groups will be highly experiential, as I will guide you step by step in breathing, meditation, guided visualization, journaling, and other similar practices. In just 6 weeks, you will learn powerful mind-body skills to help you master your response to stress, reduce your reactivity, help regulate your emotions, and improve your health. These groups will be intimate and led personally by me, Dr. Adrienne. Space, of course, is limited, so don't wait. Head over to my website, www.dradrienneyoudim.com. By signing up for my newsletter, you will receive exclusive updates for when registration for Resilient Minds goes live. Let's learn together and build the resilience you need to thrive.
And I just want to pause for a moment because that's really powerful stuff. Grit is not just one day, 1 week, 1 month, but years of dedication, of patience, and perseverance. She goes on to say at the end of the TED Talk, with kind of a chuckle, that she doesn't know what causes that grit, right? She only knows that grit is the answer to all of the people that she interviewed, children in Chicago public schools, to Army cadets at West Point, to salespeople, and so many others, that grit was the secret sauce. She didn't know how to foster that grit in humans. And I'm not a researcher, but I just want to add my 2 cents, which is in order to have grit, in order to have that perseverance to show up day in and day out, putting one foot in front of the other, you need something else too. And that something else is self-compassion. I know I talk about this a lot, and I know that it makes many of you roll your eyes. But I'm telling you that without self-compassion and its sister, positive self-acceptance, you cannot have grit and you are much more likely to sabotage your own success. Case in point, another patient came in this week. She's a patient that has a very similar story, but a very different outcome. Patient B, let's call her Sherry, also had a very big weight loss goal. And after making changes to her life and being on medication, she had only lost 20 pounds over 6 months. Now, I say only because that's how she defined it. Only. She was so upset that she had only lost 20 pounds, expecting to lose so much more, especially because she was taking these magic drugs. But can we pause for a minute and focus on the fact that 20 pounds of weight loss by any outsider's point of view is pretty darn good, right? Can we also point out that if she'd stayed the course, that she could potentially lose 40 pounds in the year, which is also pretty darn good? Maybe it's not what she imagined. Maybe it's not what she fantasized about. Maybe it's not what she wanted for herself, but still pretty darn good. And every visit, she would return dejected, mad at herself, frustrated. She couldn't get on board with small steps, small wins, one foot in front of the other, one thing better than yesterday, because she was too frustrated with not meeting this perfect goal that she had set for herself. She was losing, she was moving towards her own success. She was chipping away at that 100 pounds, but not at the rate that she wanted. She couldn't get on board with the self-compassion and self-acceptance needed to see herself and meet herself where she was at today. This was her body's rhythm. And instead of offering gratitude to her body, love to her body, and acceptance and celebration for the work that she had put in, the work that was required to get her there, she just kept badgering herself. She just kept self-deprecating. So guess what happened? She got frustrated. She got too frustrated with herself. She stopped coming in for several weeks. And when she finally did come in after 3 months, she had regained all of the weight. First of all, zero judgment here. Absolutely zero judgment because we've all been there. I think perhaps there are some important points and important lessons that we can highlight for all of us, that we can all use to learn to navigate our goals together. Maybe for you, the goal is weight loss, but maybe it's something else. For me, personally, it's this new venture of the speaking world. As many of you know, I fell into this work of speaking kind of serendipitously. Even though I have spoken for years, for decades to colleagues and have done CMEs, which I still do, or medical education for my peers, I kind of fell into this work of speaking about mental health and well-being, kind of serendipitously after I wrote my book and doing a TEDx around the book Hungry for More. And then that led to other serendipitous things like workshops that I give regularly at the beautiful Rancho La Puerta Spa And just last week, I spoke at Bank of America. But now that I want to do this thing, like for real, as a career path, because I really love it, now that I'm going after this venture as a thing and not just serendipity that drops into my lap, I get so frustrated with myself, frustrated with being back at the bottom of a totem pole, bottom of the totem pole, like when I was a intern in the hospital or a resident 20 years ago before I did this work or I became a quote expert in this weight loss space. Now I'm trying to build something new and I'm going to have that same grit, the same perseverance and patience that got me here in this space to do the work one step at a time, one foot in front of the other, with self acceptance, self compassion, and the ability to celebrate small wins. This is the work that I have to do. So I want to ask you, what is the work that you need to do? What is that one thing that is in your heart? The one goal that you're trying to accomplish? Maybe it's a health goal. Maybe it's a professional goal. Maybe it's a home renovation. Maybe it's parenting a special needs child or any child for that matter. Where do you need to summon up your grit? Where do you need to summon up your perseverance, your self-compassion for doing this long haul, not just for the week, not just for the month, but day after day, month after month, one foot in front of the other for the years to come? Bring to mind that thing while I offer you my 2 cents. The first thought I have is, what do we do when a goal feels too big or too insurmountable? What do you do in that moment? It's overwhelming. I want you to take a pause, take a deep breath, and summon up your sense of faith and surrender. How does that overwhelm get in the way of our success? Can you get past the grandiosity, the bigness of the goal? Get over the overwhelm by creating some distance between you and the outcome? I know it may seem counterintuitive, like, how do you achieve a goal by not thinking about the outcome of that goal? But trust me, a little bit of surrender can go a long, long way. So again, I want you to bring that goal to mind, take in a deep breath, breathe in faith and surrender, breathe out expectation and clinging to the outcome. Relax your body, take another deep breath, breathe in faith and surrender, breathe out attachment to outcome. Number 2, small steps and small wins. Every big goal has tiny little steps. The first 5 pounds, the first page of your rough draft, the first cold call for that keynote address. Break up that big insurmountable goal into small steps. And here's the critical part: celebrate them. You have to learn to celebrate your wins, no matter how small, and they are going to be small. Because if you wait until you achieve that giant hurdle that may take years and years to achieve, you're going to sabotage yourself along the way. So I want you to learn this practice of not only breaking up that goal into multiple little ones, but learning to celebrate yourself at each and every step. It is what you are going to need in order to have that perseverance to achieve that long-term goal. Number 3, and I'm borrowing this one from my friend, just do one thing. One thing today that was better than yesterday. One thing today that is better than yesterday. And this speaks to the perfectionism that can sabotage our success. We think we have to do all the things. We have to be perfect at all the things in order to achieve success. And that is just not true and just not feasible. It is not possible to be perfect. Perfect is an illusion, and it sets us up for failure. We do not need to be perfect. We just need to be better. So I want you to think of your goals in terms of one thing that I can do better today than I did yesterday. And if you can keep that mindset day in and day out of doing just one thing better than yesterday, you will demystify that illusion of perfection, and you will actually achieve that long-term goal, that big, audacious, grandiose goal that you are setting out to achieve. Lastly, and I've said this already, but it serves repeating, embrace self-acceptance and self-compassion. Accept yourself for who you are right now in this moment. Love yourself for who you are right now in this moment, while still striving or aspiring to do more or better. This is an absolute must, not only because it's the nice thing to do, but again, it's the effective thing to do. There is so much data that has shown that self-acceptance is critical to successful habit change and to goal attainment. You cannot get to where you want to be by hating who you are right now in this moment. So I want you to take another deep breath, and I'm going to take a deep breath. I want to applaud you in your big, grand, audacious goal. And I want to encourage you to take on that goal with some faith and a little bit of surrender to the outcome. I want you to break up that huge goal into tiny, small steps and to celebrate yourself every step of the way. I want you to adopt this mantra of doing just one thing better than yesterday, because I promise you, if you can do one thing by putting one foot in front of the other, step by step, day by day, week by week, month by month, and year into year, you cannot fail. You will succeed because you leave no choice for anything otherwise. And finally, I want to remind you to embrace self-acceptance and self-compassion in this process. Accept yourself and love yourself for who you are right now in this moment, because that acceptance and love is what is going to hold you, embrace you, give you the warm hug that you need in this long, ambitious slog to achieve your goals and to achieve your potential. I don't know about you, but I needed this episode right now. So I am sending you so much love out there, and I look forward to seeing you next week right here on Health Bite.